God wants to hear you. Come, come.
Faith that steps where the eyes tremble begins here, in this quiet place where your presence feels closer than breath, where fear has been whispering doubts and the heart has been learning how to listen beyond what it can see, because so often the eyes shake at the edge of uncertainty while the soul longs to move forward anyway, trusting that you are already standing on the other side of what feels impossible, steady and unmoved, holding the ground firm beneath trembling feet. And tonight we bring you the moments where courage felt too heavy and confidence felt far away. Knowing that faith is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move despite it, to lean into your voice when everything else feels unsure, to believe that even when vision blurs and certainty fades, your hand has never let go. And if right now your heart senses this gentle pull, come closer and rest in this truth for a moment. Because you see the steps we hesitate to take, you understand the pauses we try to hide, and you walk with us into places our eyes were never strong enough to face alone. Faith continues to unfold as we remember how many times you asked us to walk before we understood, to trust before the path made sense, to place our weight on promises instead of proof, because sight demands clarity, but faith survives on your character. And when the road ahead feels blurred and the ground feels unfamiliar, you remind us that you have always guided people through darkness with nothing more than your presence and a whisper of hope, teaching us that trembling eyes do not disqualify obedient hearts, that shaking knees can still move forward when carried by grace. And we confess that there are places we avoided simply because fear spoke louder than trust. Yet you never withdrew your call, never rushed us, never shamed our hesitation, but waited patiently until love grew stronger than fear. And in this sacred pause, we realize that every unseen step has been shaping us quietly, deeply, preparing us for what sight alone could never handle. So if your spirit feels stirred right now, allow yourself to take this unseen step with him, knowing that he walks just ahead, steadying every place where your vision once failed. There are moments when faith feels like standing at the edge of a cliff with no map, only a quiet assurance that you are below, before, and beyond the fall, teaching us that what terrifies the eyes often strengthens the spirit, because sight was never meant to lead where destiny begins. And you gently remind us that the greatest transformations happen in places we never would have chosen on our own, where comfort ends and dependence begins, where control loosens and trust takes root. And we admit how often we asked you to show us everything before we obeyed, forgetting that faith is formed precisely when answers are incomplete, when the next step is felt more than seen. And yet you remain faithful, weaving courage into fragile hearts, turning hesitation into holy ground. And even now you are whispering that fear does not get the final word, that trembling vision is not a verdict, but an invitation into deeper reliance. So if your heart feels the quiet nudge to trust him beyond what makes sense, let yourself lean into that moment, because every step taken in faith is already met by his unfailing presence. Faith keeps moving in the spaces where certainty dissolves, where the mind searches for reasons, but the soul learns to listen instead. And you meet us there with a calm that does not explain itself but surrounds us, reminding us that you are not intimidated by our doubts or our questions, that you do not withdraw when our confidence wavers, but draw nearer, steady and patient, teaching us that obedience does not always feel brave and trust does not always feel strong, yet both are precious when offered honestly. And we remember the times we stood frozen, afraid to step because the outcome was unclear, not realizing that clarity often follows obedience rather than preceding it. And you were already shaping resilience in the waiting, already strengthening muscles we did not know we would need. And even now you are inviting weary hearts to loosen their grip on control and place it gently into your hands. So if you feel that quiet surrender rising within you, allow it to happen without fear, knowing that every uncertain step taken with him becomes a testimony written beyond what the eyes could ever perceive. Sometimes faith feels less like courage and more like endurance, like waking up again to questions that never fully leave and still choosing to trust you in the middle of unfinished answers. Because you know how fear lingers in quiet moments and how doubt grows loud when outcomes remain hidden. Yet you never measure our faith by how confident we appear, but by how willing we are to keep walking when our vision falters. And you remind us that even trembling steps carry weight when they are offered in sincerity, that the ground does not collapse beneath those who rely on you, even when logic predicts failure. And we bring you the memories of steps we delayed and chances we avoided, not in shame but in honesty, knowing that your mercy meets us without accusation, and you gently teach us that faith matures not in certainty but in persistence, growing stronger each time we choose you over fear. And if right now your heart feels tired yet still hopeful, let yourself breathe deeply and take this moment as a step of trust, because you remain faithful in every place where the eyes once trembled and the soul chose you anyway. Faith stretches us further when the waiting grows long and the silence feels heavier than expected, and you see how uncertainty can wear down even the strongest resolve. Yet you stay close, reminding us that delay is not denial and quiet is not absence, because you are still working in places our eyes cannot reach, shaping outcomes beneath the surface while we learn to trust without confirmation. And we confess how often impatience masqueraded as wisdom and fear disguised itself as caution, keeping us from stepping forward when you were already preparing the way. But your love remains gentle, never forcing, always inviting growth at the pace of grace, teaching us that faith is not rushed bravery, but steady surrender. And even when progress feels invisible, you count every faithful step taken in obscurity, and if your heart senses a small but sincere desire to trust him again right now, let that desire breathe and grow, knowing that every unseen movement toward him is already known, honored, and held securely in his hands. Faith continues its quiet work in the hidden places where no one applauds and no proof appears, where obedience feels ordinary and trust feels fragile. Yet you are present there with the same power you show in miracles, reminding us that unseen faith still moves heaven even when earth stays silent. And you know how easily the heart grows discouraged when effort is met with waiting and prayers seem to echo back unanswered. But you gently reveal that roots grow deepest in seasons when nothing is visible above the soil, shaping strength that will later support what fear once said would never stand. And we admit how often we wanted reassurance before obedience, forgetting that your word has always been enough, steady and true, even when emotions rise and fall. And in this moment, you invite us to loosen our grip on outcomes and simply stay close to you. So if your spirit feels drawn to trust him without seeing the result yet, let that quiet yes rise within you, because every faithful step taken in the dark is already seen clearly by the one who walks ahead. Faith keeps teaching us how to listen beyond what the eyes report, how to discern your voice beneath the noise of fear and expectation, because you speak most clearly where certainty fades and dependence awakens. And you remind us that walking by faith was never meant to feel safe to the senses, but true to the spirit, steadying hearts that choose trust over control. And we recognize how often we measured progress by visibility, not realizing that the most meaningful work you do happens quietly within, aligning motives, healing wounds, reshaping desires, preparing us to carry what we once asked for too soon. And you remain faithful through every moment we felt unsure, every step we took while doubting ourselves, never withdrawing your presence, never rescinding your promise. And in this gentle awareness, we sense you asking us to keep moving with you, even without answers, even without applause. So if your heart feels ready to follow him one step further right now, let that willingness rise softly, knowing that faith born in trembling places becomes strength the eyes could never predict. Faith deepens when the familiar fades and the path narrows to a single step at a time, and you meet us there with a calm that steadies breathing and quiets the rush of fear, reminding us that you have always led people through uncertainty not by sight but by trust, teaching us that the shaking of the eyes does not cancel the certainty of your presence. And we remember the weight of decisions that felt too heavy to carry, moments when moving forward meant letting go of what once felt secure. Yet you never left us alone at the threshold, never demanded perfection, only honesty and willingness. And you continue shaping courage in places we thought were weakness, turning hesitation into dependence, dependence into intimacy, and intimacy into strength that does not rely on visibility. And even now you are near, attentive to every quiet fear we have not spoken aloud. So if your heart senses this gentle nearness and feels ready to trust Him again, allow yourself to take that small step inward, knowing that every place your eyes tremble becomes holy ground when walked with Him. Faith remains faithful to its slow, steady rhythm, teaching us that progress is not always loud or dramatic, but often quiet and deeply transformative. And you remind us that walking with you means learning to trust even when the landscape feels unfamiliar and the future refuses to explain itself, because you are not asking us to see the whole journey, only to stay present in the step we are standing on. And we acknowledge how fear tries to rush us or freeze us, convincing us that safety lies in stillness. Yet you gently reveal that growth often waits just beyond what feels manageable. And you stay patient as we learn to loosen our grip on certainty, choosing presence over prediction, trust over control. And you continue to affirm that trembling vision does not mean failing faith. It means we are standing at the edge of becoming. And if in this moment your heart feels quietly drawn to trust Him without answers, let that willingness settle gently within you, knowing that every step taken with Him carries purpose even when the eyes cannot yet understand it. Faith teaches us to breathe in the middle of uncertainty, to slow our thoughts when fear wants to race ahead. And you meet us in that slowing with a peace that does not depend on circumstances, reminding us that you are not surprised by our questions or unsettled by our doubts, because you have always known the places where our vision would falter. And still, you chose to walk with us through them, steady and unafraid. And we reflect on how often we mistook fear for wisdom. How many times we paused not because you said wait, but because uncertainty felt too heavy. Yet you never withdrew your kindness, never labeled our hesitation as failure, but stayed close, allowing trust to grow at its own pace, shaping faith that does not rush but remains rooted. And even now you are gently inviting us to trust you again in the small, unseen ways that matter most. So if your heart feels a quiet readiness to place this moment into His hands, let that trust rise softly, knowing that faith formed in trembling places carries a strength no clear vision could ever create. Faith keeps unfolding in the ordinary moments where no dramatic sign appears, where life continues quietly, and trust must choose to show up without applause. And you meet us there with a steady presence that reminds us you are just as near in the mundane as in the miraculous, teaching us that faith does not need intensity to be real, only sincerity to remain alive. And we acknowledge how easily discouragement creeps in when progress feels invisible and prayers seem unanswered. Yet you are working beneath the surface, aligning timing, strengthening character, preparing outcomes our eyes could not yet handle, and you patiently guide us away from measuring our journey by speed or certainty, drawing us instead toward faithfulness and endurance. And even now you are near, attentive to the quiet struggles no one else sees, inviting us to keep trusting without demanding proof. So if your heart feels a gentle pull to stay with Him in this season of unseen growth, allow yourself to remain, knowing that every faithful step taken in silence is shaping a future only grace could design. Faith carries us through moments when strength feels borrowed and resolve feels thin. Yet you remain constant, reminding us that what sustains us is not our ability to see clearly, but your ability to remain faithful. And you teach us that trembling vision does not disqualify devotion. It refines it, shaping hearts that rely on you rather than outcomes. And we bring you the quiet fears we hide behind routines and responsibilities, the silent worries that surface when night falls and certainty slips away, knowing you are not distant from these moments, but deeply present within them, steadying our breathing, calming our thoughts, guiding us gently forward. And you show us that faith often sounds like a soft yes whispered in weakness, rather than a loud declaration made in confidence. And even now you are near, attentive to the smallest movement of trust within us. So if your heart senses this calm invitation to lean on Him instead of understanding everything, let that trust settle quietly inside, because every step taken with Him becomes strength long before the eyes ever catch up. Faith keeps shaping us through repetition, through choosing trust again after choosing it yesterday, and you know how tiring that can feel when progress seems slow and the heart longs for reassurance. Yet you remain steady, reminding us that consistency in faith matters more than intensity, that returning to you again and again in uncertainty is itself a powerful act of devotion. And you see how the eyes still tremble at familiar fears, old questions, unresolved outcomes. But you also see how the soul has grown stronger beneath the surface, learning to stand even without clear vision. And we acknowledge that some steps feel harder simply because they are repeated, not dramatic but necessary, forming endurance where excitement once carried us. And you gently affirm that nothing offered in faith is wasted. Not a single moment of trust, not a single quiet prayer. And if your heart feels a soft desire to keep choosing Him today, even without new answers, let that choice be enough for this moment, because every faithful return strengthens the path beneath your feet. Faith continues to meet us where hope feels fragile and the future remains undefined, and you stay close in these moments, reminding us that trust is not built on certainty, but on relationship, on knowing who walks with us even when we cannot see where the road leads. And you gently show us that fear loses its power not when circumstances change, but when love becomes louder than doubt, steadying hearts that once trembled at the unknown. And we confess how often we wanted assurance before obedience, forgetting that you have always honored those who moved with you before understanding everything. And still you remain patient, never withdrawing your presence when our courage wavers, but strengthening us quietly through every hesitant step. And even now you are inviting us to rest in who you are, rather than what we can predict. So if your heart feels drawn to trust Him beyond logic and explanation in this very moment, allow that surrender to happen gently, knowing that every step taken with Him is already held in perfect care. Faith keeps whispering that you are present even when nothing around us confirms it, and you teach us to recognize your nearness, not by visible signs, but by the quiet steadiness that holds us together when fear tries to pull us apart. Because you have always been more committed to our growth than to our comfort, and yet you remain gentle, never harsh, never demanding more than we can offer in the moment. And we remember how often we mistook silence for distance, not realizing that you were teaching us to listen deeper, to trust your heart rather than our interpretations. And you patiently stay with us as we learn that faith is not proven by bold leaps alone, but by faithful presence in uncertainty, by choosing to stay when leaving would feel easier. And even now you are near, attentive to the unspoken fears and quiet hopes carried inside us. So if your heart senses this calm assurance and feels ready to remain with Him without needing clarity, let that quiet commitment settle within you, knowing that every step taken in faith is already wrapped in His unfailing care. Faith grows familiar with uncertainty until it no longer feels like an enemy, but a place where you often meet us most tenderly, and you remind us that trust deepens when control loosens, when we stop demanding explanations and start allowing presence to be enough. Because you are not asking us to conquer fear, but to walk with you through it, step by step, breath by breath, learning that your faithfulness does not fluctuate with our confidence, and we recognize how the eyes still tremble at outcomes we cannot manage. Yet the heart is learning to remain steady, anchored not in answers, but in who you are. And you continue to shape patience where urgency once ruled, peace where anxiety once spoke loudest, and even now you are inviting us to release the need to see everything clearly and simply stay close to you. So if your spirit feels a quiet readiness to trust Him without clarity in this moment, let that gentle surrender unfold, knowing that faith practiced here becomes strength long before vision ever arrives. Faith keeps inviting us to trust you in the in-between spaces, where answers are partial and outcomes remain unfinished, and you stay present there, unhurried and attentive, reminding us that you are not bound by our timelines or limited by our understanding, because you see the full picture while we learn to live faithfully within a single frame. And we admit how uncomfortable that feels, how the heart longs for resolution while you call us into relationship, into daily dependence that reshapes us more deeply than quick solutions ever could. And you gently teach us that faith is not about forcing certainty, but about choosing closeness, about walking with you even when the destination remains unnamed, and you continue to guard us from the fear that says we are behind or failing, whispering instead that we are exactly where growth is happening. And if your heart feels tired of needing to know and ready to simply trust Him here, let that rest settle softly within you, because every step taken beside Him is already aligned with purpose beyond what trembling eyes can see. Faith keeps moving forward even when the heart feels worn from trusting so long without visible reward. And you understand the quiet fatigue that settles in when hope has been exercised day after day, because you see how believing without seeing can feel heavier than believing with certainty. Yet you remain near, strengthening what feels thin, restoring what feels depleted, reminding us that endurance itself is a sacred form of faith. And we acknowledge how easy it is to question ourselves in these seasons, to wonder if we misunderstood your voice or stepped too far into the unknown. But you do not let us walk alone in those thoughts, gently realigning our focus from outcomes to presence, from results to relationship, teaching us that faith does not fail simply because the journey is long. And even now, you are steadying hearts that feel unsure but unwilling to turn back. So if your spirit senses a quiet desire to keep trusting Him despite the weariness, allow that choice to rise softly within you, knowing that every step taken in persistence is seen, honored, and held by the one who never grows tired of walking with you. Faith keeps revealing that you are most present when we feel least certain, when the familiar supports fall away, and trust becomes a daily choice rather than a feeling. And you meet us there without judgment, without pressure, reminding us that you never asked us to be fearless, only faithful, only willing to keep our hearts open even when the eyes still tremble. And we recognize how often we wanted faith to feel lighter, quicker, easier, forgetting that depth is formed through staying, through remaining when retreat would feel safer. And you continue to teach us that faith is not proven by speed, but by surrender, by allowing you to lead at a pace that reshapes us from within. And even now you are near, attentive to the quiet strength being formed in us through patience and trust. So if your heart feels drawn to remain with Him even without clarity or relief yet, let that quiet decision settle deeply, knowing that every step taken in faithful endurance is shaping a future the eyes cannot yet imagine. Faith keeps calling us beyond what feels safe, beyond the limits of what we can predict or control, and you walk with us into those spaces with a calm that steadies what fear tries to shake, reminding us that you are not leading us into emptiness, but into deeper trust, into places where reliance on you becomes our greatest strength. And we begin to understand that trembling eyes do not mean weak faith. They mean honest faith. Faith that refuses to pretend it is unafraid. And you honor that honesty with closeness, with patience, with presence that does not abandon us at the edge. And we reflect on how many times you have already carried us through moments we once thought would break us, quietly proving that your faithfulness does not depend on our certainty. And even now you are inviting us to take another step with you, not because everything is clear, but because you are near. So if your heart senses this gentle courage rising again, allow it to move you forward, trusting that every step taken with Him becomes light in places where vision once trembled. Faith continues to steady us in the quiet realization that you have been faithful long before we learned how to trust, and you remind us that every uncertain step we have already taken did not lead to loss, but to growth we could not see while it was happening. Because you were shaping resilience in hidden ways, strengthening roots beneath trembling feet, and we begin to notice that fear no longer has the same voice it once did, not because circumstances changed, but because your presence has become more familiar than our doubts, and we confess how often we underestimated what you were doing in silence, how easily we assumed nothing was happening simply because nothing was visible. Yet you were working patiently, aligning moments, healing places, preparing us to carry what we once feared would overwhelm us. And even now you remain close, inviting us to trust the process of becoming without rushing the outcome. So if your heart feels a quiet assurance stirring beneath the uncertainty, allow yourself to rest in that sense of being held, knowing that every step taken in faith is guided by hands far steadier than our sight. Faith keeps teaching us that trust is learned through familiarity, through walking with you long enough that fear slowly loses its authority, and you stay patient as we grow into that understanding, never demanding instant confidence, never rushing what needs time to mature, because you know that lasting faith is built gently, layered through lived moments rather than sudden certainty. And we recognize how often you have already met us in places we once feared, turning them into spaces of quiet strength and deeper connection. And we begin to realize that what once made our eyes tremble no longer holds the same power, not because the risk disappeared, but because your presence became our reference point, and you continue shaping hearts that rely on you more than outcomes, teaching us to move forward anchored in who you are, not what we can predict. And even now you are near, attentive to the small shifts happening within us. So if your heart feels a growing confidence not rooted in clarity but in closeness, allow that trust to deepen, knowing that every step taken with Him rewrites what fear once defined. Faith now feels quieter, more settled, less dramatic than when we first began, and you show us that this quiet is not weakness but depth, the calm confidence that grows after walking with you through uncertainty again and again, learning that fear no longer needs to shout to be acknowledged, nor needs to be obeyed to be respected, because you have taught us how to move gently, attentively, listening for your presence rather than scanning for danger. And we sense how trust has become less about proving something and more about belonging, about knowing we are not alone in any place our eyes still hesitate to look, and you remain faithful here as well, affirming that faith does not have to feel intense to be real. It only needs to remain connected to you. And as this awareness settles, you quietly invite us to keep walking with you beyond what feels familiar. So if your heart senses this calm readiness to continue without fear demanding answers, allow that step to form naturally, knowing that what once felt impossible now unfolds. as a path walked hand in hand with you. Faith keeps carrying us forward with a steadiness we did not have at the beginning, and you remind us that this steadiness was not learned in moments of clarity, but in seasons of trust, where we chose you again and again without needing everything to make sense. And you gently show us that what once caused our eyes to tremble has slowly become familiar ground, not because the unknown disappeared, but because your presence became our anchor, and we recognize how deeply you have been reshaping us along the way, softening fear, strengthening patience, teaching us to walk without rushing and to trust without demanding guarantees. And you remain close even now, attentive to the quiet confidence forming beneath the surface. So if your heart feels this gentle assurance that you are not walking alone anymore, allow yourself to keep moving with Him, knowing that every step taken in faith continues to be guided by love that never wavers. Faith comes to rest not in certainty, but in communion, in the deep knowing that you have been with us through every trembling moment and every unseen step. And you gently remind us that the journey was never about proving our strength, but about discovering your faithfulness along the way. Because now we see that the places where our eyes once trembled became the very ground where trust learned to stand, where fear loosened its grip and love took its place. And we are grateful for the patience you showed us, for walking at our pace, for never abandoning us when hesitation slowed our steps. And as we look back, we realize how each uncertain movement shaped a deeper reliance on you, a quieter courage, a steadier heart. And in this final stillness, we feel your nearness wrapping around us with peace. So if your heart is ready to rest fully in Him now, let that surrender settle gently within you. And may the Lord bless you with peace that guards your heart, strength that carries you forward, faith that remains steady when vision falters, and a deep assurance that wherever you walk, He walks with you, now and always.
Breathe for a moment. God is here. He wants to hear you. If this touched your heart, subscribe for more.